Okay, I think we'll get started. If you're coming from the G&L project, I encourage you to look at the introduction to the playlist to make sure this is the right course for you. The website is in the description. Okay, so we're going to talk about rotation of a rigid body. This is going to be kind of new stuff for us. It's going to set up a good portion of the course where we're talking about things that can rotate. So this is really the first time we're getting at that, and we're going to see that we're going to develop here now a angular analog to position or displacement, angular or velocity and acceleration. So we're going to have an angular displacement, we're going to have an angular velocity, and we're going to have an angular acceleration. And then we're going to talk about this parameter space. That's a rather conceptually more advanced topic. We're going to do a lot of practice in class. So I'll just go through a quick example here in the video, and then we'll get more practice in class if you're in the class at Concordia. Okay, so let's start by thinking about something that's undergoing circular motion. And so let's just imagine a bead on a wire, or let's say we have a rod with a big ball on the end, and that's swinging around like this. We could talk about the displacement of that ball, right? How much distance has it actually gone through in space? Now it's arcing this curve, right? It's not going in a straight line. It's arcing along the circumference of the circle. So some part of the circumference of the circle, and we call that a distance the arc length, the length of the arc over which it's traversed. And that's given the symbol S here. Now, this distance, just by, if you remember your geometry from high school, is going to be related to the radius, right, and the angle over which it traverses. So we can talk about an angular position theta, right? What angle has it traversed? And then to get to the actual distance it's traversed, we just multiply by the radius. So if we've got a longer rod with the ball on the end, right, and we go through the same angle as a shorter one, the ball has moved further for the long radius than the short radius. So in absolute displacement, it's moved, but through the angle, it's the same. So basically, and since the radius, it's moving on a circle, the radius is constant. So basically, the radius is leverages that angle to give the actual displacement. Okay, well then we can talk about how fast is that angle changing with time. So this is the exact analogy with velocity. So delta theta delta t is what we're going to call omega, which is the angular velocity. If we take, now let's look at the real velocity, that's going to be delta s over delta t. Well, what is delta s? Well, if we're going to change s, r is constant, that's not going to change. So the only way to change s is to change theta. So that's going to be r delta theta dt, which is going to be just r times the angular velocity. So the actual velocity is, again, just leveraged by r, and we're going to see that often here now. Okay, well, let's just keep going. Let's do acceleration. So acceleration is going to be the change in the angular velocity. So the angular acceleration, alpha, change in the angular velocity with time. And so what is real acceleration? Well, that's delta v delta t. But what is delta v? What is v? That's just r omega. So delta v, r is again a constant for this type of motion. So delta v is going to be just r delta omega. So we get r delta omega delta t. And so that's just alpha. So the acceleration is just the angular acceleration leveraged by r. Okay, well, there's another way to interpret omega. Now, omega, if we let it go around, right, will come back to itself, and the time it takes to come all the way back is the period. We refer to the speed at which it's going around then as the angular frequency. And if we imagine looking at a bead and plotting just its position this way, so if this were to cast a shadow, let's cast a shadow over here, this bead would go up and down. It would go up and down. If we were to plot that position with time, we would get this oscillation, and that oscillation would have a particular frequency, meaning how many times does it go up and down every second. That's what we call a linear frequency, f, and that has units of 1/seconds or hertz. It's related to the angular frequency such that the angular frequency is 2 pi times that linear frequency. And that 2 pi is because, as you might expect from looking at circles, you expect to see 2 pi's coming around. The period is just 1 over the linear frequency, so the relationship between the angular velocity and the period is just 2 pi. So velocity over the period is equal to 2 pi. Sorry to interrupt, I did my algebra wrong here. Bring the t over. So omega times t is equal to 2 pi. So get that corrected in your notes, and then we'll go on to the rest of the video. Okay, so that's this part of the lecture. We're going to be using this a lot now coming up. So you want to get yourself oriented, practice with some problems. Pretty easy stuff here at first, but it'll keep adding on to this. We're going to find an analog to force called torque. We're going to have an analog to mass called moment of inertia. And so we're going to have a lot of things coming up that are dealing with this. Okay, now let's take a turn that story off and go on to the next story. And here we're going to be talking about the rotation of a rigid object. So any object like this, if I throw it through space, right, it moves. We say the center of mass of this thing moves, and then it rotates as well. So just an arbitrary throw, right, it's rotating and moving through space. Now we say it's a rigid body in that it's not elastic, it's not going to stretch. So when we throw this, it doesn't stretch. If you imagine throwing like two masses on a spring and you threw it, as they start to spin, they might stretch a little bit. That would be a non-rigid body. So there's a rigid body means it doesn't have any stretch to it, but we allow for motion. So when we were doing projectile motion, we were pretty much just thinking about a point mass moving through. That's basically the center of mass of this thing. Well, now we want to be able to have it rotating as it moves through space. Okay, so in our three-dimensional world where it's completely free to go in any direction, we talk about these degrees of freedom. And for translation, like as it's moving through space, the whole thing, kind of imagine taking this and just compressing it into a point. What is it free to do? It's free to move in the x direction, the y direction, and the z direction. So in our 3D world, it has 3 translational degrees of freedom. If we lived in a 2D world of the whiteboard or a sheet of paper, then it just has 2 degrees of freedom. If we lived in a one-dimensional world, we just have 1 translational degree of freedom. Now rotation's a little bit different. For this guy, let's think about the possible rotations. So hopefully you can see I've got the eraser end facing you here now. I can rotate like this, right? I can rotate like, so if I rotate like this, I'm rotating about an axis that's coming straight at you. Now I can rotate like this, that's an axis going this way. And then finally I can have an axis going this way, which would be rotating like this. And so we have 3 degrees of freedom for rotation. So we have a total of 6 degrees of freedom. Now, a little bit special case is when we have something linear like this. Now, this isn't technically linear because it has some size to it, but imagine like a molecule. So just basically point charges here for the nucleus. Imagine this is infinitely narrow. So now what can I do? I can rotate like this. Right? So that's about this axis coming straight at you. I can rotate like this, so spinning like this, but I can't rotate here. There's no mass that's rotating around. So I only have 2 degrees of freedom there. It's a little bit complicated. For something that is not just on a straight line, then we have 3 rotational, 3 translational for a total of 6. For something that is on a straight line, then we have 3 and 2. So let's take water, for example. Water, H2O, that would have 6 for just a water molecule hurling through space. However, let's take nitrogen. That's just linear. That'll only have 5 degrees of freedom. So that's how we think about these. Now, these degrees of freedom form what's called a parameter space. And so let's take a much simpler case of this. Let's imagine we live in a 1D world like this, and we can only rotate around one axis. So that means we live in that means our parameter space is 2-dimensional, which makes it easy to draw on a sheet of paper or on the whiteboard. We have one dimension through space, just this dimension, and then we have one rotation, which would be rotating out at you like this. Okay, so let's imagine I've got this stuck to this wire, so the marker is free to move like this, and it's free to rotate like that. So we can look at the translational degree of freedom as an x value, let's say from 0 to 1. I can take on any value between 0 and 1 here. And then I can rotate 1 degree of freedom. I can take on any value between 0 and 2 pi radians, or 0 and 360 degrees. So let's now plot this parameter space. So along here I'm going to have x ranging from 0 to 1, and here I'm going to have theta ranging from 0 to 2 pi. 2 pi is, of course, 360 degrees if we're in degrees. This is completely open for this guy to do anything it wants. What it does through there, if we trace that out, and it doesn't even, it could even do something like that. That's called a trajectory. And so we look at the trajectory of this in this parameter space to talk about what this is doing. And we're going to do a lot more of these in class, but let's just do one or two here. So let's see if we can sketch the trajectory for this. I'm going to start here at 0, and I'm going to put the top of the cap up. Okay, and as I go across, I'm going to spin out towards you and then end up all the way down as I went across. So if we are measuring the angle, say from here, I'm at 90 degrees, and then I come down, I'm at 0 degrees, and then I'm at minus 90 degrees. So let's see how we might do this. So 90 degrees is going to be pi over 2. And then pi is 180 degrees, and 3 pi over 2 is like that. And let's say I'm doing this sort of constancy. When I'm halfway through, I'm right here, then I'm all the way here. So when I get to halfway through, I have come down and I've reached 0. Right? Now, we could go negative, right? But the nice thing about circular motion is when we get all the way around, when we get to 0 degrees, we can pop then over to 360 degrees or 2 pi. So that means I have to come in right here, right? Instead of going negative, I could, in my mind, I could keep going negative, right? But I can come up here and then trace that down, and I want to end up right here. I want to end up at negative 90 degrees. It's a little complicated here. So this is 270 degrees, which is equal to minus 90 degrees. So our trajectory, this should have been a straight line. Our trajectory is like this, like that. Okay. Let's try some more. So let's say I start at 0 degrees and I go up and I do one full rotation, but I speed up while I go. Okay. What is that going to look like? Well, I've started at 0. I'm going to end up at 1 full rotation, but I was slowly changing my angle and then I went faster. So my trajectory is going to look like that. So I'm going slowly gaining angle and then I go quickly to get all the way around. And notice when I hit here, that's the same as coming back to 0 degrees. Let's do one more. Let's go like this, 0 to 90 degrees. Let's stop halfway through and let's come back 0 to 90, or 90 to 0. Let's see what that would go like. So I go from 0 to 90 degrees. And then I stop and I turn around and I come back. I come straight back that same trajectory. So while it looks like a single line, I go up and then I come back. All right, so practice this a little bit. Take and just make up some motion. See if you can get the parameter space trajectory drawn. And then draw a trajectory and see if you can figure out what the motion is. If you're with the Concordia College class, we'll be doing some more of this in class.